Welcome, everybody. We're back at the podcast today. Jumped right in here.
Yeah, you did.
We're
good
all
to see
back.
you guys.
No countdown.
Everybody's back. It's been Greg was gone. Mm-hmm. I've been gone, so it's all three
Michael's
of us
been
back.
gone.
Michael was gone. We're just taking turns here.
That was like 2 weeks ago, right? I'm having to
I
think
can't
back.
remember. I don't know.
We're all off, but we're all back for now. Made it through
Yep.
spring break. Which
We
is
did.
always a
We did.
busy / non-busy time, I guess you could say.
Yeah. A lot of people.
All depends on
Yep.
the busyness is somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to have it here. You're going to have it at home.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be busy somewhere.
That's right.
Yep. Yep. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
Doing really well.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I got a chance to. This got nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but I got a chance to go speak at FCA this morning at
Good.
Apple Valley
Hey, okay.
Middle School.
Good.
So that was fun. Really appreciate the opportunity invite there from Coach McKenzie over there. Got a chance to go
Wonderful.
speak to that club. So that was a
Did
real
you
cool thing.
relive your old wrestling days?
Not quite. We didn't necessarily jump into that, but they've got a cool setup, man. I tell you, they do club time from 8:15 to 8:45 twice a month, and so FCA is set up as a club there with a couple of teacher sponsors, and there's probably a group of about
Cool,
30
yeah.
students that show up to that thing every month, and then. He was telling me, man, they've had 4 students commit their life to Jesus.
Wow.
through
Great.
that club. So man,
That's
I
awesome.
thought that was incredible. I really did, man. They're doing a great work over
So
there.
is it before school or like
They
during
do
school?
there's a separate meeting that takes place before school, and but that's separate from the club. They have about 150 that show up to the 7:30 one, but then they've got 40, 50 clubs that you could choose from, and there's a group of 30 students that chose FCA as their club.
Fantastic.
Cool.
So
I love
Great
that.
stuff.
yeah, so it's
I'm
good.
glad you went.
Me too.
Well, we had a good weekend this week. It was a lot of fun. A lot of folks there. A lot of hands going up. People saying yes to Christ. That was always fun to see.
Every week, man, that still blows me away. Every week we get a chance to see people
Yeah.
make decisions for Christ.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. I mean, I see it. I'm up front.
Yeah.
A lot of times calling it, and it's amazing. I told the church, and we should just never take that for granted. I said
Yeah.
it Sunday. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people raise their hands, and we say, celebrate that. And
Yeah.
kind of like, yeah, but you get used to it.
You do.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get used to that happening, but we should never just get accustomed to that. That hadn't always been the case here.
No.
That we saw people every week saying yes to Christ. I remember a period, it's probably been 20 years ago, that we went about 6 or 8 weeks in a row and somebody said yes to Christ for about 6 weeks in a row, and we just celebrated that. And then
Yep.
for a while, nobody did for
Right.
a while. And so I know what it's like to be asking and no hands going up. And I
Yeah.
remember the days when a hand went up, we're like, yeah, somebody got saved today. And we see it every single week. And I'm not bragging. I'm just saying God's doing something really, really good among people. And we're just seeing it every week. And it just becomes like, yeah, I'm sure hands will go up. It's easy to do that.
Yeah.
Don't take it for granted.
I journal fairly regularly, not every day, but I journal pretty much. And I was going back through some old journals that I wrote last year, and I felt like the words are still very relevant right now. It was, we constantly pray for God send revival, and I wrote down, we're not just having to pray for revival anymore. We're in the midst of one, and it's just the people that are coming to Christ, man. That is the revival right there of
Yeah.
people saying yes to Him every single week.
You can pray so long for something that's out there and not even realize when you're in the middle of it. 'Cause it isn't always exactly as you imagined it
Right.
to be. When we talk about revival, we think, yeah, all our problems go away. There's just this fire falling everywhere and there are no issues. I doubt any revival that I've ever studied has not been that way.
Exactly.
It came with a whole bunch of problems and a lot of struggles, but a lot of power too. So, yeah. Anyway, we were in the church at Thyatira this week, and it's been some hard-hitting messages. I hope everybody's not getting worn out from it, but it's been like, hey, 2 weeks in a row it's been, we were in Pergamum the week before and then Thyatira, and from one church to the next you have a very similar problem, but Thyatira took it to a whole new level. Bible scholars believe, you had Jesus is in there saying, yeah, you got a lot of good things going on, but you're tolerating false teaching that pushes people towards spiritual idolatry and sexual immorality. So the very same problem. Funny story. I preached on I was talking about idolatry, and some people were riding in the car listening to it from Upward, and their little girl said, "Pastor Andy said we can't go to Dollar Tree anymore." She thought that I was saying Dollar Tree was a sin. I thought that's the funniest thing.
Back in the day of ancient Turkey,
There was a
was
Dollar Tree.
You
can't
know
go
what?
to
Maybe.
Dollar Tree.
Those things are everywhere.
Yeah, they are. They put them up all the time.
Idolatry, not Dollar Tree. But yeah,
You know
Both-
they're above $1 now. That's unrelated.
really.
Yeah,
Dollar
it's
Tree
not
costs more
everything's
than
a dollar
$1
anymore.
Oh, inflation's got Dollar
I know,
Tree.
yeah, really.
Need to
There's
call
like
it
it's like
$1.50 Tree.
it's like one. Yeah, it's like $1.25. I'm not
$2 Tree.
They got to change their name now. A whole new branding scheme.
Yeah, it's like we got to change the logo.
Same message though, week to week. Very similar, but a church that had gone even further. And Thyatira had just gone into it. There was a woman there teaching, that Jesus called Jezebel. Throwback to the spirit that came from the Old Testament Jezebel, and she was teaching people that idolatry and immorality were okay. It's one thing to struggle with these things. It's a new level to say, yeah, this can be a part of your Christian life.
Yeah.
And Jesus really challenged them to repent. That's
Right.
been the word, the challenge the last 2 weeks is to repent, to stop doing what you're doing and turn to God, turn to Jesus. So it's been a really strong message. And the Thyatirans, I guess I'm using that word right, the Thyatirans were mainly experiencing this at work. It was and I explained it Sunday, they had these work guilds, these unions, when they would come together in the hall, a union hall, and this was a weekly thing. They would have a feast to their god. Each trade had their own god, that they worshipped, and they would have a feast, and it would be, eat a lot of food, drink a lot of drink, and then near the end, when the, quote, party got into full swing, sexual immorality would be practiced there. And this was kind of a weekly thing for business people, If you want your business to succeed, you got to come to these things. And so it's so easy to compromise there. And I know people in our day face a whole lot of challenges at work. I was talking with a friend at the gym this morning, and he said, I love it how you brought out that people don't actually change over time, that we think of this ancient practice of work people getting together in a room and eating and drinking and then everybody sleeping around to some sort of a false god, and we tend to think, those ignorant pagans back then. And he said, I sat there and realized we're doing the exact same thing. We go to a hotel and a work convention, and they may not be explicitly stated God that we're worshiping, but we all may be chasing money and success. Yeah. And oftentimes the meal leads to immorality, So, we still deal. The problem of sin is consistent across many, many generations.
Right.
Yeah. I thought it was good you talked about, too, the almost the strategy of the enemy won't necessarily be just to tell you that Christianity is evil and you shouldn't do it. It's more, honestly, I think more of the times the attack comes from, you can still be a Christian, but this stuff is okay too. And it's oftentimes like things that are really popular in the culture or things that seem like second nature to us. I think that's a lot easier of a gate to get through than trying to tackle somebody's whole belief system. It's more that they're going to try to convince you that you can do all of these things and still be in line with God.
The thing that challenges me, and we've all struggled with temptation and sin. The three of us, everybody listening, we've struggled with all those things. None of us are exempt. The thing that gets me is that when I talk to Jesus, when I get in the quiet moment and I talk to Jesus and I listen for his spirit, he doesn't let me get away with stuff. Yeah. I can go off in my head by myself and start rationalizing, okay, this is okay because of that, and I don't need to be so strict about that. But when I get along with Jesus in my heart relationship, he does not let me get away with it. You know what I mean? I can still rebel and do what I want to do, but he and I will talk about it at a certain point. Sometimes at the end of the day, I'll just take a minute and a few minutes and just get along with Jesus in quiet and just listen to his voice, and I'll hear. It's not a condemning voice, it's an invitation to more, but the Lord will remind me about somebody I haven't forgiven, or bitterness that I have in my heart, or a harsh word maybe that I spoke, or a way I wasn't so caring about something. I think you just gotta stay close to Jesus in that one-on-one heart relationship, and that keeps us out of compromise. It really does.
And I think part of that too comes from a decision that you've made in your life, that the most important thing for you is to honor God with your life, right? I mean, and that's where that conversation with Him at the end of the day comes into play, which I think is something that all of us have to kind of circle back around to. That what is the most important thing in our lives? What's the thing that I'm living for? Because if I'm living my life to honor God with it, then everything else is going to fall according to that path. But if I have made, hey, my career is the most important thing for me right now, and I'm willing at that point in time to make those compromises that are there to help me to get ahead in my career, which can start us so small, which is oftentimes the way that compromise works. They start with small compromises that maybe we don't feel like are that big of a deal, but certainly lead into other arenas.
Yep.
It's so critical. We go back to something we talked about some weeks ago, Matthew chapter 6. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things are added to you.
Yep.
And the context is worrying about stuff like food and clothes and housing and all that sort of thing. And Jesus simply says, make the kingdom your aim, and the rest of it gets thrown in. And what you said is really powerful. If you make career your aim, you can lose your family.
Yep.
You really can. If money is your aim, you can lose your family, your reputation, all kind of things. But the message of Jesus is, when you seek the kingdom, all the rest of the stuff gets thrown in. Had a conversation with a friend some years ago, and very successful in business and in his career, successful guy and great family, doing well. And he told me, he said, at work, I'm being asked to travel alone with a woman, and they're asking me to go on trips just alone, me and her. And he said, my wife and I talked about it, and we just decided that I'm not going to do that. Neither one of us is going to travel alone with the opposite sex, And he said, it really cost me at work, and people couldn't understand. And he took a lot of heat at work, but he said, my marriage is more important than my job.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there are people out there, I'll get in controversy with this, but you've heard about the Billy Graham rule. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Billy Graham had the rule of not eating along with the opposite sex or being in an elevator, all this. People are really knocking that rule in our day-to-day. I'm hearing Christian leaders saying how backward that is, and how antiquated and how out of fashion it is. I can't even say it this morning.
That's all right.
It's early on a Wednesday. So.
Old-fashioned.
Yeah.
Old-fashioned. Yeah, we'll just find a new word for it. It's just out of style, and I think, I got a hard time knocking Billy Graham. You know what I mean? He lived his life for so long, and I get it that some think it demeans women, or they don't have the same opportunities or something like that. I certainly think there are ways around that. I think there's a way to just protect yourself and protect your testimony and your family in not putting yourself in a position to fail.
And he was so aware of that at all times, which is a big reason of why there's not a lot of scandals on his name.
Yeah.
Even though he did it, which is really impressive considering he did it for so long.
So public.
In front of, in front of the most public Christian figure, probably in the modern era. This is a little bit different, but the facts are, is like, if you're in that position, he's going to get attacked a lot more from the enemy than somebody else. He's a public teacher for the faith, so I can only imagine the opportunities that were presented to him, and the evil that was kind of pursuing him. But he was really smart to do those things.
I think it's very possible too to have strong women in leadership in an organization and still keep your boundaries healthy with everybody. He does, and we do here. We have strong women in leadership positions here at work and in the church, and we just have some boundaries to protect us, and don't cross those lines. So that's incredible. It's really important for people to understand that work can be a real place of downfall for you if you don't keep proper boundaries.
Yeah.
Kind of a side note on that too. I think it's also really easy to take shots at people in leadership when you haven't walked that road. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
I mean, it's really easy to say that's an old-fashioned rule when you weren't the one in that position and knowing what was going on and what was around and what were the possibilities
Yeah.
were. It's kind of, you know what I'm saying? Just it's really easy to take shots at different individuals in leadership when you haven't been in that position and had to walk that road.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
totally.
And I'm not saying nobody here is trying to say the Billy Graham rule needs to be the standard for everybody.
No.
But we can say that proper boundaries, you got to find those.
Yeah.
And you've got to observe those.
And you
to
would rather
protect
overcorrect.
yourself than blow your life up. For
Yes,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah, you would.
You would you would rather the rule be a little inconvenient sometimes
Yeah.
than the worst happen.
Yeah.
So.
That's for sure. For sure. A lot have fallen into that and really walked into a lot of pain.
Right.
So Jesus just calls us to him, and following him is life, seeking first his kingdom, and all kind of good comes with it.
It's kind of interesting how things just kind of circle back around to that statement sometimes. It's just, seek his kingdom first. Seek him first.
Yeah.
And, things begin to fall into place after that, regardless of what the, the issue or the topic is.
They may say, some people listening may say, well, it's easy for all your preachers, so your work is the kingdom. No, that's not true. Our work is the kingdom, but everybody's work as a Christian is the kingdom.
I
You got to
agree.
be doing something that blesses people and helps people. I was talking to some Christian law enforcement guys today, and I'm like, do your work as to the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it as to him. Get up every morning and serve your community, but serve Jesus.
I mean,
whatever you do.
Yeah, I would say, we work at a church, but I think that there are still, there is still drive here to be successful and to want to do the job well and to be, and not I guess, not to just feel successful, but to appear successful as well. So there are similar temptations within. I'll just use me within my field in the area that I work in to try to get ahead. And if I don't course correct and keep the focus on the kingdom and not on Greg's platform, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I can be just as susceptible as anybody else to temptations to
Absolutely.
get ahead in a career.
You sure can.
Totally.
You sure can. Well, it's been good to be with y'all again on the podcast. Thanks, guys. Love y'all. Appreciate you so much. Love these conversations. We look forward to seeing you again next week.
Bye-bye.